From the outside, my childhood probably looked like the definition of a stable, hardworking family. My parents are still married after 33 years. My father worked, and my mother stayed home. We were devoted Catholics. I went to a private Catholic school from ages 4 to 13. We were the people you'd see at the grocery stores or at church, looking perfectly fine. Clean clothes, combed hair, a united front. People would comment on how well-behaved we were, how respectful. But the moment the door slid shut behind us, the atmosphere shifted. The first thing you'd actually see was our trailer ceiling collapsed from water damage. You'd smell the rat feces and urine soaked throughout the house. There was black mold in the bathroom and trash stacked feet high off the floor. I walked over piles of laundry, toys, and dirt every single day. The kitchen was filled with spoiled food and sugar, but there was no place to actually sit and eat as a family. My father would blame my sisters and I for the state of the house, how disgusting it was, and how he refused to even try because it was pointless. The trailer rotted with us in it, on that property for 14 years before we suddenly moved. In that house, the gravity was heavy. The rules changed without warning. My mother pitted my sisters and me against each other, a cycle that lasted well into my 20s. My father's rage over his own lack of control was released in belt wounds to my bare bottom. If you asked my family today if this were true, they'd say I'm being overdramatic. They'd say it wasn't that bad, because I could never express discomfort. That became my normal. But it wasn't normal. It was a carefully constructed system designed to keep me trapped and quiet. And that foundation led to far worse abuse to come. Today, we are going to look at the first 3 tools my family used to build that system. But first, if you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe. You don't want to miss next week, where we discuss how abusers sustain the system once it's built. So the first tool is what I call reality erasing. In a classroom, they might call this gaslighting. That's a term we're all very familiar with. But in a home, it feels like someone is literally deleting your memories as they happen. The origin of the term actually comes from a 1938 play and a later famous film called Gaslight, where a husband systematically dims the gas-powered lights in their home. When his wife notices the flickering, he insists the lights haven't changed, eventually making her believe she is losing her mind so he can steal her inheritance. Gaslighting is a slow burn. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts with small things until you eventually reach cognitive dissonance, our Jargon Jar term today. So you find yourself thinking, I know what I saw, but they seem so certain. Maybe I am just being dramatic. I remember times when my mom would lash out verbally, and when the dust settled and I tried to talk about how much it hurt, I was met with a blank stare. She would say, "That never happened. I never said that," or "You're just being dramatic." I would look to family members who were sometimes standing right there to validate what I saw and heard, but they couldn't. And listen, this is important. When witnesses don't speak up, it is rarely because they didn't see the truth. It's because they lack the safety or the emotional resources to handle the consequences of that truth. So instead of taking accountability for their actions or words, they use, again, the term reality erasing. And this is not just a lie. A lie is saying, I didn't eat that cookie when you did. Reality erasing is saying, there is no such thing as a cookie. You're crazy for thinking there is, and everyone else thinks you're crazy too. When my mother, my father, and even my grandparents all backed each other up, It was a reinforced wall of erasing. If 5 adults tell one child the sky is green, that child eventually stops looking up. How do you spot this in your own life? We're going to look for these 3 red flag phrases. So first, you're too sensitive. Translation means, I don't want to be responsible for the pain I caused you. Number 2, that never happened. Translation, I am deleting the evidence of my behavior. And third, you have a bad memory. Translation, don't trust yourself, only trust me. If you hear these constantly, you aren't forgetful. You are being targeted. Your memory isn't the problem. Their behavior is. In a healthy relationship, if you say, you hurt my feelings, the other person says, I'm sorry. Tell me why. In a reality erasing house, if you say, you hurt my feelings, they simply say, no, I didn't. They are trying to steal your sanity because a person who doesn't trust their own mind is the easiest person in the world to control. But here's the truth. Your eyes saw what they saw. Your ears heard what they heard. And your body remembers what it felt. They can lie to you, but they can't erase the truth. This is why the Safe Outsider scan we put in the toolkit today is so vital. You often have to go outside the system to find a mirror that isn't warped. When someone rewrites history in real time, you stop trusting your eyes and start trusting their versions of events instead. If you want to spot this in your own life, look for the apology pivot. This is when you bring up a legitimate way you've been hurt. And by the end of the conversation, you are the one apologizing to them. If their actions never match their words, they are erasing your reality to protect their own. Time to open the jargon jar. Today's term is cognitive dissonance. In a clinical setting, we use this to describe the mental discomfort you feel when you hold 2 conflicting beliefs at the same time. In plain English, it's the he's a monster, but he's my dad struggle. Your brain is trying to reconcile the person who fed you breakfast with the person who just erased your reality. Abusers rely on this confusion. They want you to choose their good version over your own painful truth to stop the mental stinging. We're putting that term in the jar because once you name it, you can stop blaming yourself for being conflicted. Then there is the false hope loop. This is the predictable cycle that keeps you from leaving. The abuse isn't constant. If it were, you'd run. You can plainly see the abuse if it were constant. Instead, it operates in a circle. There's the tension where you feel like you're walking on eggshells. For me, that was the constant shift in my mom's facial expressions or body language. It would be her tone. Then the explosion. She would corner us in our room, make her body big, and block the doorway. She would verbally attack and then leave us with, this is what family does for one another. And then, the most dangerous part, the calm. This would be her splurging large amounts of money on food, toys, clothes, and even going to events. In this phase, they might be extra kind or offer even a half-hearted apology that makes you think, maybe they finally get it. But that good version of them isn't the real person. It is just the necessary bait to set the trap for the next explosion. If you can start recognizing the tension phase, that heavy feeling in the air before anything even happens, you can stop believing the lie that things are going to get better and start planning your exit. The final piece of this foundation is what I call the preemptive strike, or the cult of the family. This is how they isolate you. In my life, the entire unit, that was parents, sisters, extended family, operated as one. They didn't just hurt me. They made sure nobody else would ever believe me if I told them. They would tell neighbors, their friends, or my teachers that I was difficult or unstable long before I ever reached out for help. By the time I found the courage to speak up, my credibility had already been destroyed. They build a wall around you by making the outside world seem dangerous and the family unit seem like the only safe place, even while they are the ones hurting you. These three tactics that we talked about today, reality erasing, the false hope loop, and the preemptive strike, are the bricks used to build a prison in your mind. If these stories sound familiar, I want you to hear this. You are not crazy, and you are not difficult. You are just finally seeing the blueprint of the system that was built to hold you down. Recognizing the pattern is the first step towards breaking it. Now we're stepping into the advocacy corner. We've talked about how reality erasing and the false hope loop break a person down. But here's the cold truth. In most courtrooms, these tactics are invisible. Our current legal system is built to react to a broken bone, but it's often blind to a broken spirit. The problem is our legal wording. Many laws are written around physical harm or threats, which often leaves the slow, calculated destruction of psychological abuse in a legal gray area. Most statutes require proof of physical injury or immediate threat to step in. But as we know, the foundation of control is built long before a hand is ever raised. We need to push for a shift in how we define coercive control. We need laws that recognize that isolating someone, destroying their credit, and systematically erasing their reality is a crime. Until the law catches up to the clinical reality, these abusers will continue to hide behind the "it's a family matter" excuse. We're here to change the vocabulary of the law so we can finally hold these builders accountable. Now let's look at the survivor's toolkit. When I lived in that trailer, I didn't have the words for what was happening. I just knew the air was heavy and the floor was covered in laundry that I couldn't keep up with because I was exhausted from the emotional torture. If you're in that heavy gravity right now, here are 2 tools you can use to start clearing the path. First, the reality journal. Since we talked about reality erasing, your first tool is documentation. If you can safely do so, perhaps in a locked digital note or a hidden app, write down what happened the moment it happens. Use objective facts. At 4 p.m., so-and-so said this. I felt this. When they try to rewrite your story later, you aren't relying on a fading memory. You have a record that says your reality is real. And second, the safe outsider scan. We talked about the preemptive strike and how families isolate you. Your second tool is to identify one objective third party. Now, this is someone completely outside the family circle. A coworker, a distant friend, or a professional counselor. Their only job is to provide a perspective that isn't warped by the family's united front. Sometimes just one person saying, "That isn't normal," is enough to crack the prison wall. Recognizing the pattern is the first step towards breaking it. You are not crazy, and you are not difficult. You are just finally seeing the blueprint. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233 or text START to 88788. You can find more resources in the show notes.